Good morning on this Sunday, May 16th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Governor Brian Kemp announces Georgia will soon cut off the federal COVID-19 unemployment benefits. Also, Georgia is among the states hit with a gas shortage after a cyber attack on Colonial Pipeline. And two more Atlanta City Council members announced they're running for mayor after current Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms bows out of the race. Theron, Phil, Kathy, and Martha Zoller are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Georgia will soon join the ranks of some other Republican-led states that are ending the additional federal unemployment benefits that were tacked on during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Every small business owner and the workers that are currently working, they need more people. It is hurting our productivity, not only in Georgia, but across the country.
Governor Kemp and Republican leaders say the extra $300 payout to the unemployed by the feds is encouraging them not to re-enter the workforce. And that's hurting small businesses who are trying to bounce back from the pandemic. They say now that the economy is recovering, Georgia has a record number of jobs available. But critics say until we reach herd immunity, health risks remain, forcing many to stay home.
It is a process of steadily returning. So when you pull that floor from people who need time to be able to get back into the workforce, I mean, that's something that's going to hurt a lot of Georgians, hundreds of thousands.
The state will continue to offer regular unemployment, which has a maximum benefit of $365 per week. So let's get right to it. Theron, welcome back. I don't think many of us are surprised by Governor Kemp's announcement.
Well, I was a little surprised, Lori, because I think that at a time where you want small businesses to be able to have this workforce, people do want to come back to work, but I think we got to give them a safe pathway. But the other thing that's very interesting to me, Lori, is that I actually worked at the Labor Department back in the early 2000s. And when I worked there, former Labor Commissioner Michael Thurman was there, and Georgia was ranked at that time as the #1 state as actually putting people back to work. I think I would just implore the governor and all the decision makers to say that if you're going to cut a $300 additional check to people who are actively seeking work, because you had to actively seek work to get that benefit, then you need to reopen your Labor Department offices. You need to bring all your employees back, because if you're going to put these workers at risk going into maybe some safe or unsafe areas to work, then I think you got to provide them with the resources for new careers and this new norm, and give them the people to have that interaction to help them pursue these new careers. And so I think if you're going to cut the benefits, reopen all your labor departments. Commissioner Mark Butler, I'm sure, is trying to do that, but you got to do it simultaneously and not just cut these benefits from these people who earn it.
It's an interesting perspective. Phil, your thoughts?
Well, Theron, let's just cut to the chase. We got, 400,000 job openings in Georgia, a record. Just go into any restaurant, for example, and ask about the staffing shortages. Talk to some truckers. We've got a problem with our supply chain. The Republican governors are right, even if clueless Joe Biden doesn't get it. We've got to get people back to work, and this is a good incentive to do it.
Kathy?
Well, I think Joe Biden does get it. And I tell you, the one thing about this governor is that he's always using a dull sword when he cuts people off. You know, he doesn't really give much thought as to the nuances of what's going on here. And I suspect if one were to look at the folks that are collecting unemployment right now, they either live in areas where it's not a one-to-one job need over here with job over there. And the other piece is that women are still having to manage the bulk of the tail end of this virus in terms of getting kids through school. Childcare places have shut down. The governor's going to have $5 billion in stimulus funds to spend, and I would hope what he would look at are those kinds of infrastructure issues that are making it difficult for people to get back to work immediately. And, you know, let's think of the least of these for a minute and try to figure out how to give people a soft landing.
Martha, Kathy brings up this topic of daycare. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I had the governor on this morning, and he addressed that issue, and he talked about the fact that one of the groups of people that reached out to him that need employees are daycare areas, daycare centers. They need people to be in there. And look, this isn't going to go into effect until the end of June, so that's still several weeks to be able to find a job. And I think that this $300 benefit in a place where we've got lower unemployment, I think there are certain states where it works to have to continue it because they've been closed for a long time. But we've been open for more than a year, and the CDC came out yesterday and basically said, if you are vaccinated, then resume your normal duties. And I've been traveling around Georgia, and I'm finding businesses that are closed only because they can't get enough workers. So I think it was time to do it. It is a soft landing because there's going to be 4 or 5 weeks before the benefit ends, and there'll be opportunities for people to do what they need to do.
Well, that gives me a really good transition, because while we're on the topic of this pandemic, what do you guys think of the CDC's decision advising us that if we're vaccinated, for the most part, we don't have to wear masks indoors or outdoors? Theron.
Mixed emotions, Lori. I mean, I'm fully vaccinated. I think all of us on the show are as well. And look, I definitely think that, we got to ask that question now, which is no longer, hey, have you tested positive for COVID-19? But the questions I'm asking my family and friends that I may not know if they've gotten a vaccine or not is that, are you fully vaccinated? But I still think that it's really a personal decision whether or not, once you ask that question, you still need to wear your mask. And so I do think that the CDC, while they did make this announcement today, I've talked to a few CDC workers and they're just terrified of how this is going to kind of turn out. But I think ultimately they felt, based on the science and the numbers, that this was the right move to move forward.
Phil, how long until we see retailers that require masks now say you don't have to anymore? I mean, we've seen the airlines come out and say that they're still going to require them.
Yes, I think that public transportation will still be having masks for a while, but it's a great announcement by the CDC. It should have been done months before. The CDC had a rocky road under President Trump, but it's lost all credibility under President Biden. So I'm glad that this is happening. We are seeing reopenings. Yes, Georgia has been partially reopened for a long time, and I think that we're finally seeing light at the end of the COVID tunnel. And I'm not an expert on when we get to herd immunity, but from all quarters, people are very pleased at how everything's going in terms of getting there.
And Martha, we know younger kids can now get the vaccine. I mean, have you heard much pushback from parents?
Not at all. I mean, I think parents want to get their kids safely back into school, which we've done successfully since last August. I am on the state school board, and this is certainly something that we address. But I got to tell you, for decades, we have accepted the fact that the flu vaccine may not be right every year, but we still go on with our lives, those of us that get the flu vaccine and those of us that do not. COVID-19 is different now. We are a year down the road. We have treatments. We have a vaccine. There are people with antibodies. So I think, the way we're going to get this next group of people to get vaccinated is by telling them your life is going to get better after you get vaccinated. The people like us that went through and got vaccinated right off the bat, those people have already done it. That 30% has already done it. We've got to get the other 50 or 60% in there, and we've got to give them a reason to go get the vaccine.
Kathy, do you think we're going to see some schools requiring kids who are in the age group to get the vaccine before they can go back in person in the fall?
Well, I would hope so. I mean, we require lots of things of people to get their kids into school, including vaccinations for other kinds of things routinely. So I don't see that this is any different than that. And we need to keep going until we get to the end of this road, not just give up. And I always appreciate Martha's comments on this. We saw this week Republican Governor DeWine in Ohio doing a lottery for $5 million to 5 people who've received the vaccine. There's another governor that's given kids a $100 savings bond when they get their vaccine. So, again, our governor's sitting on $5 billion that he's got to decide what to do with. And I would really like to see him get aggressive about sort of, getting that last mile delivered to people across the state so we can excel at something for once.
All right, we'll leave it there, everybody. Thank you. Coming up, were you stuck in the long gas lines this week? We'll talk about the cyber attack on Colonial Pipeline coming up.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Well, here we are, hopefully nearing the end of the pandemic. And what happens? A cyber attack on Colonial Pipeline that leads to gas shortages all over the Southeast. Phil, we've had gas shortages before when a hurricane hits the Gulf. What more can be done to prevent these types of shortages that lead to panic buys?
Well, I tell you, it's hard to know where to start with regard to the whole Colonial Pipeline disaster. First off, it's a private company, yes, but I think the federal government has a lot more to do with it when it comes to national security implications, like the whole East Coast getting crippled by the whole problem. And I think that when we read about the fact that the Colonial Pipeline didn't even have the proper cyber people in charge, they were actually had advertisements looking for the head of their cyber section. That's incredible. And of course, where is the due diligence here? I can't believe it. I don't know why the CEO of Colonial Pipeline has still got his job either. It's incredible. So I think fortunately we have reserves to call in. I think the Biden administration was a little slow in getting involved, but I didn't get stuck. I hope nobody on the panel got stuck, but I think it'll last for a few more days, according to the experts. But we cannot have this. Our enemies and the criminals out there have got to be just, happy about what's happening. And I was not happy, and I don't think most Americans are, with a ransom being paid too. Boy, that's bad.
Some scary times for sure. Kathy, it's not often you hear Phil calling for federal help. What do you think on this subject?
That's right.
Well, we do agree periodically, and this is a great opportunity to plug Biden's infrastructure package, because this is exactly the kind of thing that those investments are meant to address. It costs money to kind of harden our cyber defenses, and we just haven't done it. We haven't made those investments, certainly not under the Trump administration. And I'm just going to keep saying it. Our governor has $5 billion. He could be looking around at ways to invest in critical infrastructure protection here in this state, so that we, got something to go on. I'll keep hammering that home, because these are decisions that are almost unilaterally his to make.
Well, that leads me to my next subject. Some encouraging news on Georgia's economy. Governor Kemp announced this week tax collections are up $2.5 billion the first 10 months of this fiscal year compared to this time last year. Theron, that was some good news.
Yeah, that was some good news, and I know the governor was very happy to share that. And so at a time where last year, Lori, when we were having this conversation about the economy and when to reopen the economy and tax collections, and there was all these conversations at the legislature about looking at sort of alternative methods of revenue, I think this is definitely good news, not only for the governor, but quite frankly for the state of Georgia and businesses that need this tax money. And
Martha, it could be good news as you are a Republican pundit, coming into 2022 for election year.
Well, good economy is important because the governor has done a lot of things that maybe were unpopular, but he thought were the best thing for Georgia. And I'll take issue with what Kathy said about finally being, first at something. Georgia's first at a lot of things. I mean, we are first as far as business creation, and we are opening up jobs all the time. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And yes, I'll chime in with Kathy and agree with her. I think we should all be asking the governor, how is he going to spend the $5 billion, and how is he going to do that to expand business and opportunity?
Well, let's talk about MARTA and its federal funding, especially during the pandemic. Kathy, is it looking like the Atlanta Transit Link Authority, known as the ATL, will have the final say when it comes to federal transit funding?
I don't know. This is a little bit new news to me. Honestly, I'm still waiting on MARTA to prove that they actually can implement a transit plan. They've not done one in years and years, decades, actually. I'm getting a little sour on them, to be perfectly frank, because of promises that have not been kept over the years. So, probably wouldn't hurt for them to have to work a little harder to prove themselves.
Phil, weigh in on this, please.
Well, when we get that infrastructure money, and I do agree with Kathy to an extent that ought to be now a real critical priority of the Biden administration with regard to the Colonial Pipeline debacle. But GDOT is going to be getting that money, and then right there with it is the State Road and Toll Authority, and then they'll be allocating money, especially transportation money, to MARTA. So I think, and I think we have one of the best transportation commissioners in the country, Russell McMurray. Remember building back the interstate that got burned up by a fire in record time. I mean, that's just one example. But I feel good about GDOT and Commissioner McMurray being the lead agency.
Theron, Phil, and Kathy are agreeing on a lot today, so weigh in on this one.
Yeah, no, this is very interesting. It's sunny outside, so it must be something in the weather to have them agreeing so much. But to be fully disclosed, I do work for MARTA, and I think that the conversation that's really being had here, Lori, is the board of MARTA the fiduciary entity to administer the money? And so I think that's been sort of the conversation that's been happening. And so a lot of folks, are talking about the money coming and how to use it, but ultimately the MARTA board, is their responsibility, the way it's currently written in the law and everything, for them to make the discretionary decisions about how this money is used. And MARTA's board members want to try to keep that responsibility to them.
That's why I love having you guys on, the experts. Thank you all. Coming up, 2 more candidates in the open race for mayor of the city of Atlanta. We'll discuss after the break.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Atlanta City Council members Andre Dickens and Antonio Brown announced this week they're running for mayor. Kathy, over to you first. Your name keeps coming up since you ran before. Weigh in on your decision, and what do you think about these 2 candidates?
Well, I'm not going to be running again. It's time for some new folks to step forward and go through the torment that is a campaign for mayor. But what's really interesting about this right now is that with the current mayor indicating that she's not going to run again, it does leave an opening for people who might have deferred out of support or just not wanting to be up to the challenge. I will also say that by my last count, about 5 council members will either be retiring, running for something else, or otherwise leaving their seat. So it's not just what's going to happen, for the office of mayor, but city council president is open, and this, almost a half a dozen council members leaving. So it's going to be a very active election year, time to kind of reshape Atlanta for the next round of the future. And I expect that we'll see a few more announcements before all is said and done.
Phil, innocent until proven guilty. We always say that on this show. Antonio Brown was indicted by the feds, accused of defrauding financial institutions. That's going to be quite a campaign issue for the opponents.
Yes, that's obviously a cloud hanging over him. I think it's a joke that he's running. He's probably the most viscerally anti-police of the candidates so far. He wants to defund the police department. I think that crime and public safety are going to be the big issue for the mayor's race this fall. And yes, you will see some other candidates coming in. Obviously, Keisha Lance Bottoms realized that she had failed the city. That's why she's not running again. And I do agree that there'll be other candidates coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if former Mayor Kasim Reed got in the next couple of weeks or so, although we certainly don't need a return to a culture of corruption that the former U.S. Attorney said was going on during especially his last term.
Martha, I'll get to you in 1 second, but Theron, you didn't have a chance to weigh in on this huge news last week. Just your thoughts and the folks who have announced already.
Well, thank you so much, Lori. I wasn't here last week when Mayor Bottoms decided that she was not going to seek a second term. And so definitely want to, publicly say to her that while I'm saddened to hear that news, I do understand her decision that she made that was for her and her family and, quite frankly, her professional career, what she wants to do next. But as far as the race moving forward, I agree totally with Kathy. Very sad that Kathy decided not to run. I thought you would have been an excellent candidate for mayor. But I think we need someone new. We need someone refreshing. We need someone younger. And we need some people that are going to run for office that are going to be talking about the future and not the past. I think we need to figure out how can we really bring the city together and unite a coalition of voters that includes neighborhoods, businesses, and activists to make sure that we, continue to thrive in this city.
Martha.
Well, I tell you, the biggest indicator yet that former Mayor Kasim Reed is going to get into the race is that he sat down with another station, and one of the first issues on the docket was corruption. And so I think, short of his actual announcement, that is the biggest indicator that he's getting into this race, and it will be very interesting to watch.
I agree with that, Martha. Okay, this week, Mayor Bottoms also announced members of her Anti-Violence Advisory Council. Among the names, former U.S. Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, UPS CEO Carol Tomei, 2 city council members, and that's just to name a few. Kathy, you know a lot of these names. Weigh in on her selection.
I don't know. You know, it strikes me as sort of beside the point. They're all great people on the commission, so don't take this as a criticism of them. But what I want to see is, when is she going to sit down with Fonnie Willis, the district attorney, Keith Gamage, the Fulton County prosecutor, Sheriff Labatt, and you know, the people that touch our criminal justice system every single day, and our police chief, and start talking about what they want to see moving forward. If they came forward with a plan and then turned it over to this commission for input, I think it would be a lot more solid of a process, and one that kind of starts in the right place.
Phil, weigh in on this, because she took a lot of criticism for, you know, having a committee yet again to decide some of the crime issues and moving forward.
I don't know what's going on today. I'm going to have to be the third time agreeing with Kathy on an issue. This really is unnecessary. We need a plan of action now. There's a violent rising crime wave that's going on in the city. And yes, if Keisha Lance Bottoms would listen, sit down with DA Fonnie Willis, sit down with new Sheriff Pat Labatt, sit down even with Rodney Bryant, the police chief. Say you're for due process for police officers that are involved in shootings. Talk about recruitment and the incentives. Why don't you give a signing bonus, for example, to new officers? We got to get more staffed up. And so you don't need this commission. You need action now, and you need to finally take advice, if she will, from people who are on the ball and want law enforcement.
Theron, 15 seconds to weigh in there, if you can.
That's a lot to unpack. Thank you, Lori. Look, just for clarification on this show, the mayor has met with all those folks that Kathy and Phil named. She's met with the sheriff, she's met with the district attorney and the chief of police and others to talk about crime. So that's the first point of clarification.
She's not listening. She's not listening.
No, be nice, Phil, okay? You've been nice to Kathy today. Be nice to me, please. But no, I think, you know, let's not talk about the mayor as if she's, you know, resigning from office or she's, you know, not going to do her job anymore. I would just tell us to stay tuned. You're going to see her go out in a very, very strong and productive way, particularly coming with some very innovative solutions to our crime problem in the city of Atlanta.
All right, we'll be watching and discussing. Thanks, Theron. Thanks, everybody. Coming up, we'll have winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Okay, we got about 3 minutes, but Martha, I have to start with you because you are a big winner today. 5 years in the making. Tell us.
Well, I got my master's degree conferred on Friday, and so I finished a thesis on women's electoral success. So thank you. In the Republican Party. So I spent 5 years looking at that, and I appreciate it very much. And my winner is UGA for taking in a non-traditional student like me, and I had great colleagues in my cohort. I have a lot of young people that I'm helping get jobs now, which is great, and I had a great time doing it. So thank you so much. My loser for the week, though, is the CDC. I'm glad they finally made the announcement yesterday, and I hope this means they're going to move away from politicizing science, but that's what they've been doing up until now, and hopefully that will change.
Theron, over to you.
Well, congratulations, Martha. That's a tremendous accomplishment. So definitely want to celebrate with you soon. Lori, I really just have one winner this week, and I just want to express my condolences to the family of former council member C.T. Martin, who unfortunately passed away this week. Councilman Martin is not only a personal hero of mine, but he is someone that all the council members respected, all the mayors went to for advice. I know Kathy served with him when she was in the council, and I just wanted to celebrate his life of service. One of the things that was so magnificent about the council member is that he always was about helping people in District 10. And I just want to, also say that we're honoring him this weekend with a life of service, and so definitely want to send my condolences to his family and his sons and daughters.
Oh, such great points. I interviewed him so many times and learned so much from him. So thanks, Theron, for bringing him up. I appreciate that. Phil, over to you.
Well, yes, I'll add to the congratulations to Martha. Proud of you. I want to make as a winner, too, the Georgia Historical Society. They do some great work. You see all those historical markers around the state. That's those folks. They're having their annual gala in June. It's going to be virtual, but you'll be able to see it statewide on various TV stations, including Georgia Public Broadcasting. So you can go to their website. It's georgiahistoryfestival.org/gala to find more information. And then another winner, we lost a Georgia giant. It was former U.S. Senator David Gambrell. He also a prominent Atlanta attorney. He did a great service for our state.
All right, Kathy, hopefully we'll be returning to in-person galas very soon. Your turn.
All right. Listen, I want to recognize the passing of Winston Johnson. He was a good friend of mine. He, years ago, worked in VIP service at Eastern Airlines and befriended Mrs. King, President Carter, many others. And he brought them as allies to the LGBT rights movement and helped us gain marriage rights. Winston was preceded in death by his 42-year partner, Leon Allen, and both of them were friends of mine, and our community's really missing them right now. And my loser, Representative Andrew, gosh, I've forgotten what his last name is now, Lloyd, but for testifying that there wasn't an insurrection on January 6th, boy, he missed the boat on that.
All right, we'll leave it there. Andrew Clyde, thank you, everybody. And thank you all so much for watching. We will see you again next week. Bye-bye.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.